This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley. This is our Western edition. Paris is under siege tonight. Bodies lay in the streets after multiple coordinated terrorist attacks. More than 100 people have been killed in bombings and shootings. A short time ago, police stormed a concert hall where gunmen had taken hostages. 3 of the terrorists there were killed. Some of the hostages were freed, but police estimate that 100 people are dead in the hall. There was chaos as gunmen opened fire at a packed restaurant, also in north-central Paris. And there was an explosion near the National Soccer Stadium, which was filled with more than 80,000 fans as France played Germany. People crowded the field after the game, and French President François Hollande was at the game, but he was safely evacuated. As many as 6 simultaneous attacks were carried out on entertainment sites in north-central Paris about 8 p.m. Paris time on a busy Friday night. A state of emergency has been declared. The country's borders have been closed. President Obama called the attack tonight an attack on humanity. CBS correspondent Elaine Cobb is in Paris for us tonight. Elaine?
Scott, CBS News has learned from police sources that a 3rd suspect was killed as French SWAT teams ended the hostage-taking at the Bataclan concert hall. A death metal concert was underway there when gunmen burst into the concert hall and took hostages. 100 people, as you said, also dead. Now, French President François Hollande is at the concert hall and he has promised to fight those responsible. He says France will be ruthless. 1,500 military have been deployed across the city, and sources tell us that SWAT teams are also conducting detailed searches of potential hiding places to root out these terrorists.
And Elaine, as we continue to watch the pictures of the hostages coming out of the concert hall, what is it like in Paris tonight?
Paris is eerily quiet for a Friday night. There should be cars everywhere. There should be people out and about. But people are staying home in the area around République where the attacks happened. Many of the streets have been closed. The metros have been shut down. Restaurants have been shut. And we're being told that schools and universities will be closed too.
Elaine Cobb reporting for us tonight. Elaine, thank you very much. We also have Mike Morell, the former number 2 at the CIA, now our CBS News senior security contributor. Michael, what do you make of these attacks as they've unfolded?
Scott, one of the things that strikes me here is the operational security of the operatives. We're talking about a large group of them. We're talking about multiple simultaneous attacks, and they kept it secret. That is a very difficult thing to do. Requires operational sophistication. We haven't seen that kind of sophistication since the London bombings.
And the London bombings in 2007. And given the operational sophistication, as you put it, who do you think could be behind this?
So I think the question on responsibility, Scott, goes to either self-radicalized individuals in France coming together, working this out. Perhaps they met in a mosque, perhaps they met in prison, or direction by a terrorist group overseas, either ISIS or Al-Qaeda in Yemen. ISIS has been working on a capability to conduct attacks in Western Europe, and as you know, Al-Qaeda in Yemen was responsible for the Charlie Hebdo attack in Paris earlier this year.
Back in January, when 17 people were killed by 3 Islamic terrorists. Michael Morell, former number 2 at the CIA, thank you very much. A little bit earlier this evening, President Obama spoke about the attacks at the White House.
We are reminded in this time of tragedy that the bonds of liberté and égalité and fraternité are not only values that the French people care so deeply about, but they are values that we share. And those values are going to endure far beyond any act of terrorism or the hateful vision of those who perpetrated the crimes this evening. We're going to do whatever it takes to work with the French people and with nations around the world to bring these terrorists to justice.
About an hour ago, Chip Reed is at the White House for us tonight. Chip?
Scott, President Obama said he spoke with French President Hollande earlier today in preparation for the economic summit, the G20 summit in Turkey this weekend. And perhaps even more importantly, the president is expected to be in Paris in about 2 weeks and 3 days for a massive UN climate summit. There are more than 100 world leaders expected to be at that summit. As you can imagine, it is expected to be a security nightmare.
Chip Reed reporting. Also, we're just seeing now that the French President Hollande has canceled the French participation in that G20 meeting in Turkey that's scheduled for this weekend. A little bit earlier this evening, we spoke with Steven Sanchez, who is a freelance journalist in Paris. Mr. Sanchez, what did you see? What did you hear?
Well, I was about 3 blocks away from the soccer stadium when I heard 1 or 2 loud explosions. It may have been 1, and I may have just been hearing an echo, but what sounded like 2 loud explosions. I was walking out of a restaurant, and I was getting ready to walk back to my hotel when I heard the explosion. I started walking in the direction that I thought the explosion had came from. I started walking that way when I saw just crowds of people trying to run out of the stadium as the police were getting there.
What else did you see in those moments after the explosion?
I saw the president of France as they were whisking him away. He was at the game and he got out within, I'd say, maybe a minute or 2.
What about the explosion? What did it sound like? Was it a pop or was it more of a thunderous kind of blast?
It sounded more of like a thunderous blast. At first, I initially thought it may have been fireworks because I knew the friendly was going on tonight, and I thought maybe the game had just finished. So when I looked up to the sky after I heard that loud bang, there were no fireworks, and that's when I knew it had to be something pretty serious.
Freelance reporter Steven Sanchez tonight. Thank you, Steven. Now, while we have been on the air, French security forces staged a counter-assault on terrorists apparently holding hostages at a concert hall in the central part of the city. Elaine Cobb in Paris tonight has more on that. Elaine?
Scott, city officials here tell us that the hostage-taking situation is over. Riot police went in, they freed the people who were there. The 2 hostage-takers are dead. One City Hall official said it was like carnage in there. People who were leaving said they were terrified. It was a death metal concert. It was the end of a song when they heard gunfire and saw a gunman with an automatic weapon shooting into the air.
Elaine Cobb reporting. Thank you, Elaine. A quick recap for those of you just joining us. A U.S. federal official has told CBS News that at least 60 people have been killed in multiple terrorist attacks in Paris tonight. They were simultaneous attacks on entertainment sites on a busy Friday night. They included a bombing at a soccer stadium where there were 80,000 fans, a restaurant which was struck by gunfire, and the concert hall that Elaine was just mentioning. A number of people were killed there, and then a hostage situation unfolded. French forces counterattacked the concert hall, and now, as Elaine reported, we understand that situation is over. France has declared a state of emergency. France has also closed its borders tonight. And we will be back in a moment with more on this developing story. Now, we just told you that the police assault on the concert hall in Paris has ended. In the last couple of minutes, we received this video of that police assault. Now, to give you a sense of what's happening here, terrorists were holding as many as 100 hostages in the concert hall. French counterterrorism forces, as you can see, surrounded the concert hall. And here come a number of people, most likely hostages, who are coming out with their hands on their heads. Many people were killed in the concert hall earlier this evening when the terrorist strikes first occurred. We are told by witnesses that the terrorists who were holding the hostages in the Paris concert hall threw explosives into the crowd. And one police official has described the scene inside as carnage. But these are new pictures just coming in now of the French police as they have hopefully brought to an end this night of murderous terrorist attacks across central Paris. At least 60 people have been killed. Many more have been wounded in the attacks on at least 3 entertainment sites, a soccer stadium, a restaurant, and the concert hall where you were just watching the video of the police assault. Now, Jonathan Vigliotti is in our London newsroom, and he's been putting together information about the security picture in Paris tonight. Jonathan?
Good evening to you, Scott. And when you look at these images, it's all but clear attackers have taken control of Paris. And at this point, officials desperately trying to get a grip on the evolving situation. To do a breakdown of this, a state of emergency has been declared in France. The country's borders have been closed and residents are being asked to stay inside. There are reports of, as we've been hearing throughout the evening, people locked inside stores and restaurants out of the very real fear of another attack. Well founded, as we mentioned, because along with emergency response that we see unfolding in the streets of Paris, there is, keep in mind, a very active manhunt. Many of the attackers, excluding 2 suicide bombers, we're told, have escaped. We just saw that video from the Bataclan Theater where just moments ago, police were able to take back control the hostage situation there. 100 hostages. We were hearing unconfirmed reports hostages were being executed one by one. Police say at this stage, to summarize, they don't know who is behind this largest terrorist attack in the country in the last few decades. Scott?
Jonathan Vigliotti reporting from our London newsroom. We now have with us a witness to the events in Paris tonight, Tony Headley. Mr. Headley, what did you see?
I arrived about an hour ago at the Bataclan. Sorry for the sound behind. More police is arriving. Bataclan is one of the large showrooms where the hostages were apparently being held. I saw an enormous amount of police, about 100, and special operation police arrive. And I then heard about 10 shots and then several explosions, which occurred. And since then, have not seen any ambulances move. But the situation at this point and the latest event is that there's a large motorcade, which looks like, or seems to be, part of officialdom that has arrived. I don't know if it's the French president coming at the scene as he did when the bombings happened at Charlie Hebdo.
Tony Headley, a witness to the events tonight, speaking to us. He was talking about the Bataclan Theater, where police have just assaulted the hostage situation and have killed apparently a number of terrorists and freed a number of hostages. What we don't know critically at this hour is what does it look like inside the concert hall. There are reports that the terrorists detonated explosives in the crowd there. 3 sites in Paris at least simultaneously attacked tonight. At least 60 people have been killed, but that number is certain to grow as we learn more as the evening unfolds. We will be back in just a moment with more details on this developing story. French police are now reporting there are many casualties inside the concert hall that was assaulted by the French earlier this evening. There you can see wounded people being brought out of the Bataclan concert hall, one of 3 sites attacked by terrorists in Paris tonight. A number of hostages made it out. You saw some of them there, but we are now told that inside where terrorists detonated explosives, there are many dozens of people who have been killed. This on top of the 60 fatalities that we know of from the bombing at the soccer stadium and a mass shooting at a French restaurant, all three occurring nearly simultaneously about 8 p.m. Paris time. Joining us now is Juan Zarate, former Deputy National Security Advisor in the Bush administration and a CBS News security analyst. Juan, based on what we know so far, what do you make of the attacks in Paris?
Scott, this is a significant terrorist attack. Obviously, it's been horrific. It's paralyzed Paris and it's put France in a state of emergency. But what it demonstrates is an evolution of the terrorist threat as it's evolving in Western Europe. You have a coordinated set of attacks that have hit signature soft targets, purposely trying to hit strategic targets that affect the psyche of the population. What it also demonstrates, Scott, is that there's a growing reach of these groups well beyond the heart of the Middle East. And so if this turns out to be the Islamic State or even Al-Qaeda, these are groups that are demonstrating that they can reach well beyond their local environments. And we have a new potential of a global war on terror on our hands as a result. And so this is a potential game-changing moment, certainly horrific for the people of France, and our hearts and thoughts go out to them. But certainly this represents potentially a new threat from terrorism emanating from the Middle East and perhaps from North Africa.
And stay with me as we continue to watch these pictures, apparently of hostages being led out by police after the police stormed the concert hall, one of the sites of the terrorist attacks tonight. Juan, Paris was attacked in January, 17 people killed at the Charlie Hebdo magazine and also at a Jewish grocery store. And then in August, 3 Americans stopped a man with a machine gun on a French train. Now this has happened tonight. Why France?
Well, France has been a terrorist target for a number of years, Scott. Keep in mind that in the 1990s, the Paris subway and other sites were subject of terrorist attacks. France is seen as a real enemy for global jihadi groups, and they also have local populations that have been radicalized, populations with ties to groups in North Africa. We've seen French citizens traveling to places like Yemen, and certainly French citizens traveling now to Syria and Iraq. And so you have a history of France being targeted, France fighting in places like West Africa and in Syria, and populations within France that are growing more and more radicalized. And so that's a combination for disaster, and certainly it's why French counterterrorism officials have been so worried about these kinds of attacks, and precisely why they've had these debates about increased surveillance and security within French borders.
Juan Zarate, former Deputy National Security Advisor in the Bush administration. Juan, thank you very much. If you were watching the video a moment ago and you happened to read French, it said 100 dead at the Bataclan Theater. We have not confirmed that, but the French television network that is supplying us with this video is saying that there are 100 dead in the theater alone. And that would be on top of the 60 fatalities that we know of. But again, we want to emphasize that that is being reported by French TV, and at CBS News, we have not confirmed 100 dead at the theater. This is a chaotic situation. First reports are always wrong, and we probably will not know reliable casualty figures until tomorrow. We'll be back with more on the Paris attacks in just a moment. Now the latest from Paris. French President Francois Hollande promises a ruthless response to the terrorist attacks. Last report is that 120 people or more have been killed, most at a concert hall where gunmen had taken hostages. Police stormed the building and killed 3 terrorists there. Some hostages were freed, but about 100 people have been killed in the hall. There were at least 6 simultaneous attacks tonight, the deadliest in Paris since World War II. There was an explosion near the National Soccer Stadium during a match between France and Germany. Gunmen also opened fire at a packed restaurant, And Elaine Cobb is in Paris for us tonight. Elaine?
Scott, Paris is eerily quiet. The city would normally be humming on a Friday night, but the streets are deserted. There are no people out and about. In eastern Paris, where all the attacks took place, there are streets still cordoned off by police. Metro stations have been shut down and people have been told to stay home. Francois Hollande declared a state of emergency and more military are deployed across the city.
Elaine Cobb tonight. Elaine, thanks. At the White House this evening, President Obama called the terror siege an attack on all of humanity. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security says there is no specific or credible threat against the United States tonight. We're going to leave you with a shot of One World Trade Center lit up in red, white, and blue in honor of France. That's the CBS Evening News tonight.